I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how we use PebblePad in a maritime business module. So, let's see if this works. No, it's fine. For anybody who doesn't know Plymouth, we're in the far southwest sort of coastal town, and our main campus is kind of a city centre campus. However, we have one of our buildings which is called Mast House, which that's the front of Mast House and that's the back of it. So if there was anywhere you wanted to study maritime business, that would be there. So it's a nice building to go to. So my early conversations with Sarah last year, because we did this has been our first year that we've had e-portfolio based learning. We were having a conversation about, she wanted to have portfolio based learning in her module, and we were talking about the different types of portfolios she might want. And Sarah was new to e-portfolios generally, so I was talking to her about PebblePad. You could have unstructured portfolios where the students have total creative freedom. It's a blank canvas, you just give them some guidance. So we went through those. I talked to her about structured portfolios, which we use a lot of, which are the workbooks and the templates, where as a tutor she could scaffold the activities that students did. And the end of the conversation was, well, quite like both. I was like, okay. So we then, of course, why wouldn't you want both? So just a tiny bit of context on top of the sort of hybrid portfolio we were looking at. Within the Maritime Business Programme, it was a Maritime Shipping and Logistics module. It only ran for 4 weeks. We have 4-week immersive modules at the start of Plymouth programmes, which literally are designed to immerse students in everything that they're going to be exposed to in the first year of the programme. The module is taught by 3 tutors, and the portfolio was designed collaboratively by all 3 as well. It was a group of 60 students. And as I said, it's one portfolio with 2 approaches really. So, this is the first page of Sarah's portfolio, and this is where we wanted the unstructured part. She wanted a place where students could be creative, and she wanted to get to know them fairly quickly because they were only with her for 4 weeks. So we came up with this sort of about me page, which was totally freeform. Sorry, it's a bit little on the screenshot, but the students were asked to kind of say who they were, why they were there, why Plymouth Maritime Business, and they had some other reflective prompts that Sarah talked to them about. So everybody's portfolio looked like this when they got it on day 1. So what they look like on sort of day 2, day 3. So this is the front page of Nikita's, and the students had a lovely time doing the creative part of this, and I'll explain to you how the 2 bits work together. So basically they could put video, they could put audio, they could put text and links about who they were. And he chose Plymouth because where else would you want to do maritime business? So agreed. There were videos he linked in there, and I've just put some sort of red boxes around things to remind me more than anything. One of his classmates said that he'd added a video to his portfolio, so he was going to do it as well. And things that inspired him, so stuff that wasn't in our more structured portfolios, we don't often see this. So this kind of 2 approach of having an unstructured portfolio page essentially at the front. So I'll just show you another couple as we go through. So we had 60, and I'll just show you 3, but 60 unique looking portfolios. They all started off looking exactly the same, and structurally they all were the same, but from a student perspective, that kind of personalising it from the outset. So that was what we were trying to do. We had lots of activities that were structured, so we wanted that front page to be, right, all yours, knock yourselves out, which worked well. And now to kind of talk to you about the rest of the portfolio, which is, I won't even bother.
Where's Shane when you need him?
Yeah. so everything under About Me is scaffolded and constructed by the tutor. And I say by the tutor, by the tutors. So the problem-based logistics assignment was done by David. The shipping page was done by Chukwaniki, and they did their template pages in their own PebblePad accounts, sent them to Sarah, and then Sarah collated them into the module workbook that the students were given. So just to sort of show you the kinds of things they included, and it was really nice that the three of them worked on it because they all had different ideas of what they wanted the students to do, and we talked to them about the functionality that Pebble had. So we've got things like just text box input, what do you understand about sustainability? The little red rosette at the bottom, as everyone knows, is for them to link additional evidence, so they could do documents, media, additions, whatever they wanted to do. When it was the shipping page, what I really like about this module, and hopefully it'll show as we go through, is there was a really nice thought process behind what the assessment was going to be, and hopefully I'll show you that all the pages in this portfolio matter, and all of them needed to be done, and they fed into the assessment, and the assessment fed back into this. And so, and as well as that kind of thoughtful assessment design, it linked to the rest of the module that lived in Moodle. So they had a Moodle module page where they had some quizzes, because as you know, we haven't got Quiz Builder currently, so we had to use Moodle. I never thought I'd get Quiz Builder into this, but hurrah. So basically they did formative quizzes in Moodle. They had to then take a screenshot and attach it into their portfolio. So everything linked and aligned really nicely. They had reflective elements on lots of the pages. They've got reflection as a section in itself, but on the sort of assessment-y type pages, they had reflective elements which the students had the option to make private. So they had a private option for each one of them. If they wanted to leave them open for the tutor to see, they didn't click the private button. If they wanted to just do it for themselves. And she had, I think, about 50-50. Some ticked it as private, some just left it on there. But it was a nice option for the students to have. There was, on every page, so whatever activity they were in, there were assessor-only fields for tutor feedback. It was a 4-week immersive module, so Sarah was keen that they got regular feedback on all the different activities that they were doing. So basically, you see these sort of tutor feedback options all dotted throughout it. And there was a couple of different ways Sarah used the tutor feedback box. So in the top one, very quick text-based assessor comments, just formatively, and all 3 tutors did that. And for some of them, they wanted to use a more formal feedback form. So they would say, right, go and have a look at the tick on the side, because what they wanted to do was the students not be confused where the feedback was. So in the most part, it was text-based, but if they ever did it in the actual feedback panel, they made sure the students were signposted at that point to go and get it. So it was a nice use of assessor fields. The bottom 2 pages, which were self-evaluation, diagnostic pages, again, were relevant because they had to do them, and I'll show you where that fits in a minute. But again, they had the private option. Sarah made it clear at the start that because she's very passionate around personal development planning and students as a whole, that if they did this and they wanted some feedback or conversations around it, that if they didn't tick the private button, then she would do feedback and she would talk about it in class in more generalisable terms. So both of those pages there were quite detailed, bespoke skills audits that Sarah had designed for these sort of first-year students, with a choice of whether they made them visible or they didn't. So the bit that was saying that about everything sort of fitted together, assessment 1 was a poster presentation that does get linked to the portfolio, but assessment 2 was the kind of portfolio assessment part of it. And what's really nice, and there was 10 of these, I've just shown you sort of the first 3, but the students did very small bits of writing. And so you can see, if I do the bottom one first, they did very small bits of writing around you work effectively with others and recognise factors that affect team performance. So they did a bit of text-based stuff, but it had to link back to their problem-based logistics page. So they couldn't just do the text about this is why I think I'm good at it, links back to their problem-based assessment. They had to, so as I said at the start, every page mattered. So sometimes with formative portfolio activities, students like, oh, well, it doesn't matter, I don't really need to do it, or it's optional, and all those kind of things. But But because each one of these little sections in the final assessment required it to link back physically so the tutor could go back and see what they were illustrating, the students engaged with them all. So this one made them go back to the problem-based assignment page. The second one, they had to do a screenshot of the library quiz that they'd done. And the first one, it makes them link back to all of the first 4 pages. And each one of the 10 just makes a really sort of, they follow in sequence, but from the students' feedback, it was like nice, small, little bits of writing that they were doing. Instead of like a big essay, they'd done a really nice poster bit, which they all enjoyed doing as well. They came to this part of the assessment and, you know, the feedback was just being able to break it down and it not being an essay like they were expecting it to be made a massive difference. So I will go on to the next bit. So the student feedback, apart from the appreciation of the kind of the chunked element of the final sort of write-up. So it was clear, it was rewarding. I liked that it was the best aspect, and these guys went to France or somewhere in the 4 weeks as well, so the fact that this was better than a 3-day field trip in France. Sarah's probably going to kill me because I'm actually not sure they went to France. They went somewhere on a boat, but I'm sorry, Sarah, if you ever watch this.
You sure it was a boat, not a peddler?
Oh, good God. They could have just been going around the harbour. So there was some nice, but there was some, you know, a little bit of confusion at the start. Sarah got them into workshops initially, so that they downloaded the portfolio together. They started doing their About Me page, so they kind of knew what they could do media-wise. And as people know, we had auto-submit. So the students submitted their portfolio on day 1. But even though it was only a 4-week module, we still had multiple queries coming up to when the official deadline was to say, do I need to submit it again? We can't, it's increasingly difficult to get students out of the sort of culture of I must click submit at a point in time.
I agree.
And if I had £1 for every time I've said it's already submitted, just save it up until the deadline, I would be like a gazillionaire. So there was some, I think, and that was only because the 4-week spread of time, they just couldn't quite remember if they had submitted it, and it's a slightly different submission method to what they're used to when they're doing Moodle. But on the whole, they were fine, and they had an hour session at the start of this module, and this was in V3, so all the screenshots you've seen are in V3, and they have their V5 workshop next week. But if it's anything like Paul's student, so anybody who saw me speaking with Paul yesterday, we did a workshop with a portfolio not too dissimilar to this in V3 with students last year, and it took an hour, and we were there for the hour making sure they were knew what they were doing. We did exactly the same one this year in V5 because we went across slightly earlier, and within 15 minutes they were like, no, we're done. And I was like, are you sure? Is there anything you need? No, we're fine. And half of them did it on their phone and their iPads, and normally we're having to get a lab and all this sort of stuff. So I think if Sarah's is the same, what used to be like an hour workshop getting students up and running is now either not going to be at all because they'll just have a set of instructions and they'll go off and do it, or it'll be a very, very short endeavour. So, how much time have I got, Col?
Just over 5.
Cool. So, what we're trying to do, so Sarah's module was a 4-week immersive module, and she, staff feedback was good, and what she wanted to do was then try to look at how she could embed it wider. So just before we get to the compass bit, so Sarah is now she's designing portfolio-based assessment into other modules now that she's the program leader. So at local program level, that's a really positive thing. Institutionally, we are soft launching is the best word I can describe it this year, a new set of graduate attributes, Plymouth Compass. And what that does, it's 4 compass points that look at, and I won't read them out, and I'm sorry it's a bit blurry, but critical and creative learner, sustainable and global citizen, competent, confident professional, and resilient and thriving individual. And each of those 4 graduate attributes has sub-attributes that make up what skills students may be able to attain while they're at Plymouth. And what's a really nice thing from a portfolio point of view is that the institution has gone with a portfolio way of giving this to students. So basically there is a Plymouth Compass portfolio now that has nested workbooks for each of these areas, which institutional experts in each of these areas have designed activities and content and diagnostic tools for students to work their way through. And we've got a pilot with, and I know everybody hates the word pilot, but we've got a staggered pilot soft launch, is all the words I can think of, where we've got about 20 personal tutors across the institution. And personal tutors in the UK context are the one consistent member of staff that a student sees through their entire programme. So the personal tutors are going to be the ones that are raising awareness, are looking at these graduate attribute portfolios. Initially, we're like literally starting this next week. So in the pilot, the tutors will say to the students, have you seen this? Have you worked in your portfolio? We're hoping that programme leaders who already have some sort of portfolio assessment will pull this one and nest it into what they've already got, or they'll take a part of it and put it into something that they already do. So for the first time institutionally, we've got something that is portfolio driven across its entirety. And just linking with that before I run out of time, this link may work or not. No, of course it doesn't. So I should just use the medium of creative dance to illustrate this. What should be behind there is, alongside the compass, is the new Plymouth Extra, which is a catalogue of extracurricular activities students can do, about 300 I think. Everything from digging at Eden to doing something down at the waterside. And a whole host of those activities are institutionally verified, so somebody rubber stamps and says, yes, this student came and did digging at Eden. And at that point, that verified activity is getting sent to the Higher Education Achievement Record, so the HEAR report, so there's something on their sort of official transcript. And we're also just working with Pebble at the minute, because that same record is going to go into their PebblePad account so that it can then be linked to their graduate attributes stuff. So as well as it being formally recognised on their transcript, we wanted a feed of it into their asset store so that everything sort of to do with the whole student was in that sort of one place. So that again is starting next week. Oh, it's the start term next week, hurrah. So those kind of I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say in a roundabout sort of ways, it's the first time we've had this sort of institutional buy-in, meeting some of the great work that's been done at programme level and module level, and our challenge over the next year is making sure those things all fit together. And the good thing is from a student perspective, when they go into PebblePad now, they've got modular-based stuff that they've done. If they've got portfolios for Sarah's module, for example, they'll have their compass portfolio, and they'll have any extracurricular activities to then reflect on. So the reason we're doing it as a soft launch is because we want to work with groups of students to just make sure all of those bits sensibly fit together. So in a year, if I'm not totally grey, ask me how it's going, but at that point I'll give up.
Thank you.
Thank you.